Perfect. Welcome. My name is Brianne Quigley-Nackert. I am key staff in the USW Paper sector, and I am extremely excited to have you all here tonight. I want to welcome you to this evening's Women in the Industry Town Hall. I appreciate all of you taking the time to join us for what is sure to be an inspiring and informative discussion. As you entered the meeting, you noticed the QRD code and link for you to submit your response to the question, what does a job in the paper sector mean to you as a woman? We would like you to consider that question as you're hearing from our moderators, panelists, and guests this evening. The link is also available to you in the chat area so that you can enter your response during the town hall if you have not done so already. Laura Donovan will share the answers submitted toward the end of the evening as a visual graphic, and I'm looking forward to seeing that come together. I want to take the opportunity before we begin to sincerely thank a few women, Sally Feistel and Gwen Booker, for their time and input at the inception of this town hall. A huge thank you to Ann Fleener-Gitlin, in particular, for her insight and efforts on the town hall, and all of the Women of Steel coordinators for helping get the word out. Also, a special thanks to Laura Donovan for her tireless work behind the scenes. All of you are much appreciated. I will begin tonight with a short presentation highlighting the reasons this town hall is so important. We will hear from our esteemed moderators, USW Vice President Leanne Foster, and AF&PA President and CEO Heidi Brock, who will lead our Q&A panel with some amazing women in the paper sector. You will have an opportunity to submit questions for the panelists in the chat, and we will get to as many of those as we can. We will be highlighting the importance of domestic violence leave language with the assistance of a very dynamic speaker, and we will end this evening with a bit of reflection and closing remarks. Overall, this is sure to be a great town hall. So let's begin with a short presentation. Next slide. Thank you. As an overview of women in the paper industry, the paper industry has historically been male dominated. Even today, the number of women working in the paper industry in our USW represented facilities is significantly low as compared to the USW overall average of women at 20% in our union. Women represent an average of less than 12% across the sector. Next slide. This slide shows the percent of women represented in some of our major companies in the sector. Women are only 7% of the workforce at WestRock and just over 15% at International Paper, still quite low. Next slide. And here you will see some noteworthy companies. We do have a small amount of companies that are attracting and hiring a higher percent of women. Women are 68% of the workforce at Capital Box Corporation and 67% at M&F Stringing LLC. These locations are some that we can look into to find out what has attracted women to those particular facilities. Next slide. Here, mean takes the sum of all wages into account and divides them by the total number considered. We see that the mean income in the paper industry, which is represented in blue, at $38,000 and over $50,000 in converting and mills respectively, as compared to income in the top two female-dominated occupations outside of the paper sector with similar entry-level education requirements. Home health care and child care workers are at $23,000 and $27,000 respectively. So we could assume that women in the paper sector and paper industry are making about $15,000 to $23,000 more annually than if they were employed outside of the sector in occupations with similar entry requirements. It's important to note that if we had only considered wages at union facilities, the annual income you had seen on this screen in the USW paper sector is generally higher than those shown here. Next slide, please. Thank you. So that was interesting, but why does it matter? Why am I sharing these numbers with you? Well, the number of women in the paper sector does matter. It matters because we know that a job in the paper sector provides good family supporting wages and benefits. Because good wages and benefits equates to economic security and independence, which we believe that everyone should have an opportunity to achieve. It matters because women represent 7.5 million of the estimated 9.8 million single parent households in the United States. Having a good, stable income is incredibly important, especially when it is the only income a family is relying on. As I noted in an earlier slide, women make up less than 12% of our members in the USW paper sector. However, when women are in the sector, we step up. We get involved in our union. Of the top 11 local union positions within our sector, over 17% of those positions are held by women. So we are a lower number in percentage, lower in total numbers, but we hold a decent percent of the leadership positions in our union. Next slide. Later, we will be discussing with some amazing women in a panel. You will hear from women who work in the industry, how and why they started in the sector, and what it has meant to them and their families, their thoughts on how we can drive more women into the industry. We are looking forward to that. Next slide. And finally, our purpose. Our purpose with this particular town hall and moving forward. We are looking at two key components for the future. We are looking to partner with companies that are hiring in the future to introduce more women to the industry, its benefits, and identify barriers a woman perceives or faces to enter the industry and overcome them. We are also going to be looking at USW paper sector domestic violence bargaining language. We can stop sharing the slides. Thank you. I am so pleased to have two very important guest moderators for our discussion panel. USW Vice President of Paper, Leanne Foster, and the AFMPA President and CEO, Heidi Brock. At this time, I will turn things over to Leanne and Heidi for their personal introductions and to hear firsthand what the paper industry means to them. Vice President Leanne Foster.
Good evening, everyone. We're so excited to have you all on tonight for this important discussion that Brianne just set up for us. For me, our union and this industry has meant everything to my life. I'm a paper worker kid and a Midwestern girl. I grew up in this industry. My dad worked at Longview Fiber in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, which is now West Rock, for over 45 years making boxes, and I joined him in my college summers to put myself through school. I couldn't have afforded to go to college without being able to work in this industry, and I couldn't have worked in the industry without the union, because the union fought for hourly kids as well as management kids to work as a summer help. And I never forgot that, and I never forgot my experiences on the shop floor, and that's what drove me to want to represent workers and their interests as a lawyer and a bargainer. I am grateful now to be a woman that represents this sector of our union and interacts with this industry in bargaining, trade, and policy matters. But I am even more grateful for what our sector and this industry means for our members, their communities, and our country. And key to the topic tonight, what it means for so many women. We have an opportunity to bring even more women into this industry and impact their lives in so many ways, and reflect to them that they belong here, and they belong, as one agenda item reflects, even in the hardest of times for them. Tonight is largely a listening session. Heidi and I want to hear from you, the women that work in the industry, and learn from your experiences and get your thoughts about how we both, in the positions that we're in, can influence the industry and attract more women to all of its benefits. I love everything about this industry and papermaking in all its forms, We have a great story to tell, and I think together we're doing a great job telling it. And I'll turn it over to Heidi, who leads that effort for the AFMPA.
Well, thank you, Leanne. It is so great to be here with you at such an impressive forum. So I just wanted to briefly introduce myself and the organization. I'm Heidi Brock, President and CEO of the American Forest and Paper Association. So AFMPA is the National Trade Association of the paper and wood products industry. And we work to advance public policies to promote a strong and sustainable US industry. And as all of you know well, this is an industry that is truly an economic force in so many communities across the country. The forest products industry broadly produces nearly $300 billion in products annually and employs nearly 950,000 people. In fact, the paper and wood products industry is a top 10 manufacturing sector employer in 45 states. And all of this means that there are big opportunities for those of us here today. And as we just heard from Leanne, big opportunities for women. So my own introduction to the paper and wood products industry started during my own childhood. Similar to Leanne, I was raised in a small town. I was raised in Walla Walla, Washington, not far from what is now PCA's containerboard mill in Wallula, one of the most significant employers of my hometown region. My grandfather also owned a small tree farm in Washington State that I visited as a child. And in the early part of my career, I had an opportunity to work for Washington State's Senator, United States Senator Danielle Evans, where I managed a portfolio of issues related to our industry. And after Dan retired, I went on to work for Senator Slade Gorton, just as the Spotted Owl and Endangered Species Act issues were gaining attention across the country. My career later led me to Weyerhaeuser, where I fostered an even deeper appreciation for the many contributions of the forest products industry and the communities surrounding that industry. And just prior to my position at AFMPA, I served as the president of and CEO of the Aluminum Association, which really further deepened my passion, my personal passion for the importance of manufacturing. So I want to touch on why I believe events like this town hall are so important. I have a slide to share, if we can pull that up. And so what I wanted to share is that at AFMPA, we are also committed to advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion in the industry. And we recently released a statement of industry principles that will serve as a guide. Now, we heard about how the paper and wood products industry provides great economic value. And I wanted to share that our chief economist shared with me this week that the Bureau of Labor Statistics recently noted that the average weekly earnings of primary pulp, paper, and paperboard sector employees exceeds the average for all manufacturing employees by 17%. And the average for all private sector employees by 32%. And that is really good news. And it is particularly impressive to me, given that the pulp and paper mills are located in rural areas. But more than that, what this sector is also offering is an opportunity for women to be a part of an industry that is committed to making our world a better place as well. And so earlier this month, AFMPA launched Better Practices, Better Planet 2030, Sustainable Products for a Sustainable Future. And this initiative follows the sustainability goals we set as an industry for 2020 to advance us even further as leaders in sustainability. Our industry creates products that are used every day by millions of people, and these products are made from renewable resources, and many of those products are also easily recycled. We can take such pride in the work we do to produce the products that are essential products that people rely on. And at AFMPA, we are also celebrating the people who make those products. And if you visit our blog at our website, afmpa.org, you will see many stories of the people throughout this industry, the amazing people. These are personal stories that are among our most engaging content that we produce. This is the content that people want to hear. They want to hear your stories. And I encourage you to read them and share your own stories so that we can continue to spread the word about the terrific opportunities that exist in our industry. Again, it is an honor to be a part of this conversation with all of you. And let me turn things back over to Leanne to introduce our panelists.
Yeah, so I now have the pleasure of introducing our panelists. Our first three sisters are from Local 1535 at the Essity Paper Mill in Barton, Alabama, and that's in USW District 9. So Amy McGuire. Amy has 18 years at Essity, and she worked at a USW represented international paper mill for 10 years prior to her career at Essity. She runs a rewinder machine in the converting area of the mill and is the Women of Steel chairperson. So welcome, Amy. And Lori Smith. Lori has 17 years at Essity. She worked at Kimberly-Clark Paper prior to that. She also runs a rewinder in converting and was the local's financial secretary from 2005 to 2012. She is the Triangle of Prevention top safety rep for the facility. Thanks so much for being here, Lori.
Thank you.
Cindy Moss. Cindy has 18 years at Essity. She worked prior to that at Shook Steel Contractors, Nucor. She has worked both in napkins and winders and converting at the mill and currently does a PPR job for the napkin department. She has served the local as recording secretary for over 6 years. Welcome, Cindy. Gwen Booker. Gwen is currently a USW staff representative in District 9. She started in 2001 at International Paper in Rome, Georgia. She held the position as an assistant crew leader in the shipping department, which was the highest ranking position there. Over her 20-year tenure at IP, Gwen was very active in Local 804, eventually becoming local union president. She was also chair of her local Women of Steel committee. We're so glad you're here, Gwen. Tara Gorley. Tara is from the Georgia Pacific Mill in Wana, Oregon, Local 1097, District 12. She is the local treasurer and a senior heavy equipment operator. This year, Tara celebrated her 26th year at the mill. Welcome, Tara.
Yeah.
And last but not least, Jamie Asby. Jamie is the local 1356 president at Domtar in Plymouth, North Carolina, District 9. She will celebrate her 34th year working at the mill later this year. She is currently a machine tender on NC5 fluff pulp machine. Jamie is very proud to be a third generation paper worker. Welcome, Jamie, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Before we get into the panel, we have a video highlighting some great work our Women of Steel at the Essity Paper Mill in Barton, Alabama, who are represented on our panel tonight, representing what they are doing to both support young women and introduce them to the industry. Can you please roll the video?
Our Women of Steel Committee is a division within our local, our union, and it's more or less to build each other up and encourage each other within the workplace and just in our everyday lives. But also, as one of our, I guess, projects, and these ladies had actually taken on before I got to be chairperson, but we sponsor and help one of our local, it's called Fame Girls Ranch. And so they mentor and they take in these girls that don't have homes and raise them and teach them and mentor them. So we took them on as mentors ourselves.
Spent 4 or 5 years we've been kind of helping out off and on with the girls. And when we had talked about doing a tour out here because we wanted them to have the whole experience. And then after we had done the tour, the girls was really surprised at how kind of clean the plant was, how many women worked in the plant, the leadership roles that women held. And I think even after that, we had some girls was like, well, how would we get on? So we was kind of happy that we, showed them some new inspiration and, talked to them about it.
I remember that one specific, she was like 16 and she was sitting in here eating and she was like, I can't wait till I turn 18 so I can come to work here.
Yeah. I think the manufacturing industry is misleading to women if they've never worked in manufacturing. They still think it's a man's world. You know, they think it's, I mean, it can be physical at times, but it's nothing out here that a woman could not do.
Yeah, nothing can stop us. Like your says, we've
Yeah.
done it, that you can't stop us now. That's the first time we've seen the video.
I was going to say, I think that's the first time you've seen it. But it's such an exciting story. We're so grateful to you for sharing it, and it's a great way to kick off our panel. And I love that your work, through the work that you did with the young women in Barton, they are excited about our industry and working in the industry. So we're going to turn now to questions for you all. Heidi is going to start us off with our first question.
Yes, well, and let me just echo what a fantastic video. What an amazing piece of work that you're all a part of. So again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more from each of you. But, you know, to get things started, I just wonder if each of you could tell us how you got involved in the industry and what drew you into the paper industry. And maybe since you were just featured, Amy, I wonder if we could get started with you.
Yes, I started, I was a young mother. We were starting a new family out, had a young child, and so I actually started.
Can I just suggest that we have everybody else except for Amy mute their lines?
Is that better? That's better. Anyway, pursued a job with Champion International Paper, which was local in our area, and it was actual converting sheet paper from rolls to Xerox. So I worked there for 10 years, of course, with the young family, and I was going to college at the time. So it was a challenge. So I didn't pursue my college working shift work, but I worked there for 10 years and then got the opportunity to change jobs and come to SD. So I jumped on that and have loved it ever since. And it's been financial security, the economic, just being dependent on being able to do and provide for our family and as our family grew. So it provided a way for us to raise our family and for my retirement, you know, which is a few years away, not too much more. So I've been with SD for 18 years and I was with Champion for 10, so 28 years, going on 29 years in the paper industry.
Well, thank you so much, Amy. I wonder if we can continue on with your the team from Essity with Cindy and Lori. Can you also share what drew you into the paper industry?
Well, I started my paper career at Kimberly-Clark in Corinth. The difference was it was a non-union facility, but I was similar to Leanne and Heidi, both my mother worked there. So I worked as a summer student as well. Then I ended up marrying someone from there. And while we were married, this facility was under construction and starting up. And he actually encouraged me to come put my application here. Now, it was across the state line. It was going to be a 45-minute drive. And I was like, I don't want to drive. I want to stay here. But I did. I got it. And it was the best decision I ever made because I have enjoyed it thoroughly. This was my first experience with union atmosphere. And I wouldn't take anything in the world for it. But it was that financial security for me as a divorce shortly came afterwards. I was able to survive on my own and have things that I would have never had before had I not stayed in the paper industry. And I'm very thankful for my decision to come here.
Great. Cindy?
This is my first time in the paper industry. And I had family that had, when I was younger, had retired from paper mill, and they would always talk about how good a job they had, the benefits they had. And I thought, if I ever got the chance to be able to get a job at a paper mill, I'm going to take it. And then when the Essity facility come into the Barton area, I applied, and of course I got lucky and fortunate enough to get the position. But for me, it's stability. You know, it's just long-term employment, and I really enjoy it. And
like Lori, this is my first time ever being in a union, and it's the best thing for me too.
Thank you for that. Jamie, what about you?
Yeah, well, once I got out of high school, I knew college wasn't my path. So I ended up working a couple of factory jobs, low paying factory jobs. Like I said, my grandfather and my father worked at Warehouser. But it was, for me to get on was everything because of the pay and the fact that I understood even then what the union would do to help me get through the work process. The other places I'd worked, I was held to a certain level of jobs I could go to because I was a female. Now, yeah, it was intimidating and nervous knowing I was going into a workplace that was predominantly male, but it's not anything we can't all handle. I did it, just like the shirt says, you can't stop us now. So yeah, it's been one of the best decisions and opportunities I've ever gotten, and especially because of union representation.
Thanks, Jamie. And Gwen, anything you would like to?
It's kind of, I've actually worked in union before. I worked at a bakery, which was bakery, confectionery, and tobacco. My son was getting ready to go to college and my mother had been sick. And so I really needed some better income to help send my son to college. Didn't realize, I had an uncle that worked at the paper mill, but didn't really realize what the paper mill really was. And so a friend of mine who worked in the fibers department, she mentioned to me about they were accepting applications. Had no idea really what I was getting into, but went to a job fair, and out of 900 people, they chose 30 of us, and I was one of the 30. And so here I am 20 years later, sitting in the chair of being a staff rep, never even thought of that either. But the union and the paper mill has definitely benefited me financially. I've met people, been places that I've never even dreamed of because of the union and the paper industry.
Wow, powerful stories. And Tara, what about for you? What drew you in?
Actually, I'm another third generation at our mill, and that's kind of how I got started. My dad was a paper maker, and then I married a paper maker, and at the same mill, and the rest is history, I guess. Getting involved in the union had mostly to do with insurance benefits going away and that kind of thing. So I've been on the retirement and the insurance committee now for, I don't know, 24 years, I think, and at the mill for 26. And like I said, it's opened up my eyes and gave me an education on life that I never thought I would experience without it. So.
Those are all such engaging reasons, and what a fantastic promotion for these types of jobs in the industry. I think it just showcases how important this town hall is, and to gather these stories up as we're trying to encourage more women to enter into the paper industry. A lot of you spoke to my question, which was what benefits has the industry brought to your life? So maybe we can move to what you think. And I know at Essity, at Barton, you're already sort of doing this by the outreach to the young women in the community, but what can we do to make more women in your communities aware of the industry and all of its benefits? Anyone want to jump in and answer that one?
Well, we was actually talking about this question earlier. A few things that we suggested is just like we're doing with the Fame Girls Ranch, we could do career day at school, the college recruits. One thing we talked about earlier is doing a plant tour to the public for women, just women only, because some women just don't want to talk around men, or, kind of afraid to ask the question. So I think maybe job fairs, or
I agree, the job fairs. And going to the high schools like you were suggesting. I do believe stepping out and pulling the young girls that don't want to go to college, don't know where their route is in life, and maybe give them, like she said, give them some direction, show them that there are other careers out, that you can make good money and work and I guess that's would be my thing, to job fairs and reaching out to the young ladies at schools.
I think that's such a great idea, that especially the outreach to young women even at the middle school or high school age, so they start to think about it. Because as Jamie said, for some people, college just isn't their cup of tea, right? But there's still a way for you to go and make a great family sustaining wage and benefits in the industry, and it's not as intimidating as people may think it is. Any other ideas?
I know in Rome, we actually have a technical college. And I can remember when my son was actually in high school and they went to the technical college and they did tours. And like the lady said, very seldom do you see women even take those classes, which made a bridge for those young men to come into manufacturing industries. So like she said, in order for women, young ladies to be interested, they have to see us in those roles, because if they never see us, they never think it's available to them.
Jamie or Tara, do you have any ideas other than what's been stated already? It's okay if you don't.
I'm just wondering what kind of ideas do people have to how to get this started, like through the schools? Because that would be the key in this area, is getting it done, like I said, in middle school or high school. How would we go about even getting that started?
Yeah, so one of the things actually we've been talking to Domtar about, and a couple of other paper companies, we wanted to get this town hall first because we didn't really want to step out ahead of thoughts that the people who actually work in the industry have. But one of the things we thought about is partnering with those companies through our Women of Steel committees and our local union leadership to work with the companies and together go into the high schools and start talking to them about the industry. So that would be kind of what we thought where we would start. And so we would do a couple of pilots. We were thinking for Domtar, a couple of the mills up in Wisconsin. And we were actually thinking, since Gwen is from Rome, she could help us with the International Paper Rome, Georgia mill, and just start those pilot projects and see how it goes. And then we can move from there. And I'm certain that we could probably reach out to Essity and Georgia Pacific and get them on board as well. Well, thank you for that. Heidi, do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, maybe turning a little bit and building on the earlier comments. I wonder if you can expand a little bit on what do you think that we as women can do to assist in, making the industry feel more accessible? Are there barriers that we should be kind of tackling? Interested in thoughts on that. Gwen, do you have anything that comes to mind there?
So I think probably one of the biggest barriers. So I was, I started at the mill when my son graduated high school. So for me to, so therefore I didn't have anyone to have to worry about babysitting or being out of work for childcare or anything like that. I worked with several young ladies who did have small children. So that was always a challenge because we all work, for the most part, work shift work. So that's a challenge in recruiting younger women who have families, working shift work the way we do. At mine, we were on Southern Swing, so that was 8 hours rotating every 7 days. They're getting ready to go to 12. So even that can be a challenge if you're working 12-hour shifts, your child got activities going on and all of that. So I believe that's a challenge for young mothers coming into the paper industry. It's great benefits, like you say, money-wise, but what are you giving up in order to make that money? You're missing a great deal of your children's lives in order to financially provide for them. So I think that's a challenge for women, working mothers especially, to come into this industry when there's no type of leeway for you to be off and be with your children, unless you have it where you can swap shifts, where we did at the mill. So that was even fortunate for me. But that's a challenge for most working mothers.
Really appreciate that perspective. Anybody else want to chime in with something that you think is a barrier that would be good to tackle? How can we assist more women? to see the opportunities.
I think one of the things that I've heard is that some people are a little bit intimidated by the testing process as well.
Yes.
So if there was a way, I think the sisters at Barton were talking about bringing people in for a chore. And when you're talking about that, just not helping people, with the test, but just explaining what the test is about and that there's resources out there where you can sharpen your skills so that you can pass the test and be able to get into the facility. So I think a lot of people just steer away from any kind of job that would require some kind of technical test, and they're not that difficult if you just if you network a little bit and see that other women have done it.
I see a few heads nodding. Is that something that resonates for folks?
It does.
Go ahead.
It does it with the interview process. It seems the men that come in for the interviews are more familiar because we're in a rural area and they're farmers and work in different kind of situations than the women do. So the women have no understanding of a whole lot of what the questions and all on during the interviews, and to be able to show them what it's all about and be able to see inside the mills, and that would help overcome.
Thanks for sharing that, Jamie. Anybody else have anything there?
I know Calhoun Community College, which is a good hour, maybe 10, 15 minutes away. I know at one time they were offering skill set, like assistance to help men and women to better themselves and to prepare for the testing process for different industries in the area. Decatur has a lot more, I guess, industry than what we do here in this area. And if some of the local colleges, the junior colleges, maybe jump on board and feed off of that and help some of the workforce in our area prepare for testing, as you said, sharpen their skills, as you said.
So one other thing, I know, Leanne, you talked about even working summers at where your dad used to work at. And I've known people before I even went to the mill that say they worked summer jobs, but I don't even think they offer that anymore. So even if that could be something that could be looked at to be able to come and work summer, that way you could get a feel for if that's something you want to do, or to open up a door for people to see what's going on inside.
I think that's a great idea, like just almost a summer help crew of people that could get exposed to the industry. I hadn't thought about that like that before.
We had the summer workers at the mill, and it was Weyerhaeuser. We don't anymore, but it was only open to kids that were going to college already. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't open for, anybody to come in there and work in the summers. Only college already, I think, past their freshman year in college.
Our program is set up that way too. You have to be enrolled in college to be eligible to work for the summer program. And maybe that's something we need to work on, is not just kids that are enrolled in college, because this industry would appeal more to someone who college is not cut out for them. And yeah, maybe that's something we need to work on in our negotiations, is opening that up to not college bound children.
Good suggestions. Good ideas to explore. Leanne, how about if I turn things back to you for the next question? I also see there's some great questions in the chat here too. So.
Yeah, I think most of the questions, other than your final question, Heidi, have been asked, but there have been a couple of interesting ones that have come in through the chat. So one of them is, are there any skill tests? We talked about this a little bit, but maybe you all can talk about it a little bit more. Like, what kind of skill test did you have to pass in order to be hired into the industry?
Go ahead. It's changed from when we hired in. All of us have been there 17 and 18 years. All of
Right.
You're 18, almost 19,
Yeah.
18, and I'm 17 years. And it was a little more in-depth, the test that we had to take, a mechanical skills test. Now, it's not as hard now as it was 15, 16 years ago, but there is still a test. And I agree that probably does deter some women from thinking they can get in it, but it's pretty basic, really. I would like to see more people try to conquer it at least. You know, you never know if you don't try. So I'd like to see more try that. But I'm curious what y'all's company, what kind of testing y'all do.
So I think at IP is like you say, they change over years. I think it's a lot harder because we have so many people that do not pass it and may take it 2 or 3 times before they actually do pass it. I think there are less women that even take it. Even when I got hired on, I can remember at my old job, somebody mentioning that test is so hard and hardly anybody passes. So I didn't even tell anybody I was going to take the test because I didn't want to take it and fail and be like, well, I failed it. So I didn't tell anybody. So when I did pass, it was just like, I got the job. So I think now it's a bigger challenge. And then it's actually on a computer, which a lot of people, if you're not computer savvy, that may be a challenge within itself. And then I think they're all in a room together when they take it and all of that. So just that by itself, like I said, is a challenge. So to be able to get some insight of what may be on the test or similar questions that could help someone would be beneficial to women for sure.
We have a what's called a career test that they take at like community colleges, and all factories in the area you have to go through this career readiness test. But I was very surprised at how many people that were trying to get on the mill had never even heard about this test you would go and take. So even in the schools, they're not promoting the career readiness test that all factories in the area require before you can even interview.
That's some great insight from all of you, I think. Around the Tara, you look like you wanted to add something. Sorry.
I just actually text the rest of the standing committee to ask them. I'm not aware that we do testing at our mill anymore. I know we don't do any physical testing. When I was hired 26 years ago, we had like 4 hours of testing and a huge interview panel that was very intimidating. And to my knowledge, we don't do any of that anymore. It's all done through a third party hiring service, and we just get who we get. I honestly, I just don't even know what we do anymore because it's changed so much over the years, and it doesn't seem like it would be intimidating or anything anymore because, like I said, doing what I did, I would be scared to death now, but it's not the same at all.
Yeah, maybe GP kind of evolved because they weren't feeling like it was of value to them.
Like I said, I'm not sure, but.
Well, thank you all so much for your contributions. I think Heidi has one last question for each of you.
Yes, thanks, Leanne. So, you know, sometimes we have opportunities to have conversations with the folks that are leading the companies that you work for. And I think Leanne and I would love to hear if you had a chance to, you know, share an issue or item of interest. If you could sit down with that leader of the company that you work for, what would you want them to know? What would you like them to know about the opportunity to get more women in the industry?
Well, I would like to say, don't disregard us because we're there and we can work and we can do just as well as a man can. I mean, the challenge is there, but we can do it. It's been proved in all the women on the panel, so don't disregard us. Give us our chance.
What else?
I still would like to, you know, do a plant tour just for women, you know, to the public. if that was possible, just so that, and us women lead them through the plant. I think if women come out there and toured our facility, they would get a better understanding of it and wouldn't be so scared to work in, manufacturing places when they see how well our place is. I agree.
So I would say,
I do too. I think we.
Go ahead, Gwen.
okay. I was just gonna say, I would just, if I had an opportunity to sit down with someone, just to let them know that these jobs are just important to women as they are to men, that we can be valuable if you give us the opportunity to show that we are willing and able to do whatever it is that needs to be done. We are listeners. We are participants, we are leaders, and we don't like to be disregarded. And so just give us the opportunity, like Sister Jamie said, and we can show you that we can do whatever needs to be done.
Tara, were you going to say something earlier too?
I was kind of going backtracking a little bit, but our public relations gal at the mill does already do things at the school, and it's more company driven. So I would like to probably get with her and do more of the union driven side to let them explore that avenue as well, because they do have career days at the schools around here, and the company has a presence there, but I'm not sure we as a local have a whole lot of presence there, but I would like to change that.
Great. Thank you all again for participating. I think it's been very enlightening, and I've been taking notes furiously, and then I remembered we're recording this, so we'll be able to go back and capture all of this and start building out our plan even more into the future. So, one of the participants participants just said reaching out to women's shelters might also be a good idea for folks, which I think one of our locals in the oil sector does that. So that's definitely something that we should look into is how to connect with them, because this job could be a lifeline for them. So I'm going to now turn it back over to Brianne to move into the second topic of our town hall.
Thank you. I just have to say that while we were preparing for all of this, I knew that it was going to come together. Talking individually with each one of the panelists leading up to this, I was very excited to have everyone in the same room, even though it is virtually. But I am so impressed by each one of our panelists. Their experiences and insight will be so useful moving forward with one of our key components, which is, as Leanne had mentioned, and I believe that you've heard it from some of the panelists as well, to partner with companies that are hiring and introduce women to the paper industry. Our second key component moving forward is to develop domestic violence leave language. As part of our 2018 paper sector guidelines, we had committed to draft language on domestic violence leave, which can be proposed during negotiations across the sector. This language is so important to have in place to protect all of our members. We know that domestic violence affects women, people in the LGBTQ community, children, and men. It is not limited to women. It is, however, an issue that affects women at an alarming rate. Therefore, it is an important part of this town hall. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 1 in 4 women have been victims of severe physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. And a study of intimate partner homicides found that 20% of victims were not the intimate partner themselves, but a family member, friend, person who intervened, or bystanders. So this truly does affect all of our members. We are very fortunate to have Teresa Cassidy with us this evening. Teresa has started her career with Cooper Tire and Rubber as a green tire trucker, hauling tires in the facility, and a proud union member of Local 207L. During that time, she served her local as the Women of Steel chair. Her skills and passion for the labor movement did not go unnoticed. And when you meet Teresa, you will realize why. She soon joined our strategic campaign staff, later to become a staff representative in District 1, before being promoted to her current role as the assistant to the District 1 director. Teresa will be sharing her poignant story with us to help highlight the reasons that having contract language in place to protect our members' jobs and ensure their safety at work is so very necessary. Before we hear from Teresa and discuss the importance of domestic violence leave language, we would like to share a short video.
So I met Barry when we were in high school, and we started dating around our sophomore, junior year. We ended up getting married a few years after we graduated. We had a son, and, you know, the control and the violence just kept getting worse and worse. And it wasn't just physical, it was mental as well. I remember coming home, and he had worked at a factory that was, they just had union elections, and he had won a position, and I did not know that he wanted me to go to his swearing in. I didn't go, and he just started his craziness and beat the crap out of me. And I remember taking his Doc Marten boot, I can see it right now, to the face, and where he had broke all my teeth in the back on both sides out. And our son was sitting in a chair eating, and I remember him turning around and saying, "Will you stop hurting my mommy?" And Barry yelling at him to shut the hell up and to turn back around. And at that minute, I knew that that was it. And so I just laid there and I took the last beating from him that I was gonna get. So I waited for him to pass out, and he went in the bedroom and did just that. And I packed as many things for my son as I could, and I took a change of clothes and we left. And I was very scared because all the threats and things that he had said that he would do if I ever did that was starting to play over in my head. It was March 27th of 1997. I was getting ready. It was Good Friday that year. It was a beautiful day out. I had the day off of work. And I remember looking up, and there he was coming over the top of the car. And my girlfriend had exited the car and ran up to tell my mom to call the police. But he had drugged me out of the car and took me behind the shed of the neighbors and started to beat the crap out of me again. I had glasses on. Those were lost. I don't know where those were. Drug me out back. And I remember the sirens coming, and I could hear them. And then my grandma again. I could hear my grandma yelling my name and yelling his name to let me go. But, you know, I remember then the cops coming, and they essentially did get him. And the whole time that he was taking me back in this field, he had a knife in my back. And he kept saying, "Do you feel that? It's going to go in here, or would you like it to go in this place?" And he kept moving it around my back. I remember like looking out of the side of my face, and I could see the bottom part of a cop's pants. I don't know what was said, and I to this day I can't remember, but all I remember is I jumped up and I jumped at that cop in his arms, and I remember them saying, "He's going the other way." Excuse me. And I would not let that cop put me down. He carried me all the way back up to my parents' house. Leading up to that day, you know, he would call and say that, you know, he was going to go into my work and shoot everybody up. And I didn't take it lightly. And I remember, going up to my supervisor and telling him what was going on and that he shouldn't just brush it off, because what he said, I truly believe that he was going to do, because I just left him and, took our son. And essentially, he did not have a family. And so I remember my supervisor at the time taking all of us, shutting production down. We all went up into the cafeteria and talking to everybody about what was going to happen if this did occur. And that, everybody had a job to do. And, if I was on a machine that I couldn't hear on the overhead speaker or anything, or being paged, that somebody was to come up to me and tell me to go to my hiding spot. And I was going to hide there until, I got the all clear. And I remember feeling like, why me? Like, why do I have to have this conversation? But I knew if I didn't, and something happened to one of my coworkers, that I would have felt horrible about. I missed work after the incident. That I worked through the victims advocate of the county that I lived in at the time. But had my supervisor not really stood up for me, I guess, or, heard or cared even, I don't know what I would have done, because now I'm a single parent. I have this young son to raise on my own. I was worried about losing my job. I didn't have a lot of vacation time to use because I had just gotten this job. And I was just very thankful that they listened to me and that they helped me in so many ways that they probably don't even realize that they helped me. I guess, out of all of that, it really taught me you are somebody. That somebody, many people do love you. That you can do anything that you put your mind to. That you are stronger than what you felt like sometimes. And you'll be okay. You will be okay. You'll make it.
Thanks, Brianne, and thank you, everybody. So that video just gave you a brief idea of how, my life was during the 9 to 10 years that I spent with my abuser. And with the union's commitment to bargain domestic violence language, it will give members some comfort knowing their job will be there during some of the most difficult times of their life. It will also play a role in the escape plan that they make, and something that they think about quite often, how they're going to get out of that. And so, Lance, could you please bring up the slides with the language?
All right. What you have on your screen here is actually example language. And we will be reviewing language moving forward with our paper sector policy committee. It will hopefully look something like this. They will have their input, and we will use the experiences and the knowledge that we've gotten from Teresa and from other women within our sector, from other people that are facing these situations within our sector and across our union, to really give some meat and weight to this particular language as we move forward. Next slide. And what you see here is the preamble. So the USW paper sector recognizes that members experience domestic violence, and that if it is not addressed with support and compassion as Teresa had talked about, that it can have serious negative impacts on health, safety, and economic security. So Teresa really highlighted with the video, and as well as with some of the discussion that she'll have following this particular slide, she will really highlight what that means to her and how that would have helped her and will help our members moving forward when they have strong language in place. Next slide.
So the first one on here, the paid leave, which can be supplemented by additional unpaid leave and which does not use up the member's sick leave or vacation. This is very essential to have this kind of language in there to help stop the cycle. But most importantly, it will help keep the victims from not returning to the abuser. The next one, the requirement to prove the member is experiencing domestic violence that accepts proof from a wide range of sources, such as counselors or spiritual leaders, doctors, lawyers, domestic shelter employees, local union officials, etc. I would say on this one to please try not to limit the who of where the source of proof comes from, because this can be a very difficult thing for a victim to have a conversation. Because I know in my own personal experience, I didn't share a lot of what I was living through with a lot of people. There were maybe 2 people that were very close to me that knew the entire situation. But it's very important that we try not to just give a specific list, and that's the only requirement of proof that we get. The next one would be the confidentiality. No related information kept in personnel file without members' express written permission. Strictly controlled sharing of information with other employees, and only in order to ensure workplace safety. So very important that any kind of work that we do with a victim of domestic violence to be kept confidential, because we have no idea what's being said or told to the victim at home as far as what will happen if the abuse comes out. So if the abuser finds out that this person is talking to anybody and it gets back to the abuser, we don't know what the repercussions to that victim could be. So confidentiality is very, very important. The protection from discipline, especially if attendance or work performance suffers as a result of the domestic violence. Look, there may be times that the victim misses work and cannot call in because of the situation, or has to go in hiding and has no way to contact anyone right away if there's a point system for attendance. So this language would be very helpful. And as far as work performance, there's many times that I was wondering, what was going to happen when I got off work, or, what would be happening when I went home, or what happened the night before. And sometimes I probably didn't work the best of my ability. And so, just knowing that they have some protections about their work performance is going to be hugely beneficial to them as well. And the next one, the employer commitment to accommodate by changing work schedule, job design, work location, telephone number, the email address, or other measures to increase safety and help the member balance work and family responsibilities. I shared in the video of how my supervisor made a commitment to work not only with me, but everyone on our shift by having a plan if my ex-husband came in the plant, by having someone get me if I couldn't hear the loudspeaker and providing me a hiding spot. He also kept me off the jobs that were near the doors. I mean, this is going to be unique to every situation, and something that, a conversation, thinking through every possibility that there is, and not disregarding any, possible accommodation, but to listen to everybody on the floor, the ideas. Maybe you would get some other accommodations out of their suggestions working through that. And the last one, the employer commitment to safety planning, optional paid training for peer advocates and related workplace policies. Look, we literally thought of every aspect of safety when it came to my situation. From the things I mentioned in the video, the things I mentioned a few minutes ago, but also where I parked my car in the parking lot, how I was walking in and out of the plant, who I walked in and out of the plant with. We didn't have, a security guard or a fence around the facility. So literally thinking about all those different things is very, very important. I can't tell you all how many times I heard just leave. Seems easy, but it's not. Or I heard there's no way I would let anyone do that to me. I never thought I would either. But having others trained as advocates is such an important piece to all of this. There's so much that a person truly don't understand unless they have lived this. But with the proper training, they can be better equipped with the help and guidance that's needed to help any victim of domestic abuse. A few minutes ago, I mentioned an escape plan. Victims of domestic violence make these escape plans over and over in their head. Victims stay for many reasons, but this language will help so many people with their escape plan to leave knowing there will be a commitment from the employer on a safety plan and proper trainings. There's protection from discipline if they need to go into hiding, the confidentiality and accommodations at the workplace, all while being on paid leave. From my experience, I will say that every word in the proposed language would have been so helpful and one less thing for me to worry about while planning my escape plan, leading up to the day that I finally left. And I know this language will be life-changing, for so many of our sisters, brothers, and siblings. And I just want to say thank you all for allowing me to be a part of the town hall and for allowing me to tell you just a small part of my story. Thanks.
You, Teresa, thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for everything that you do. You truly are a phoenix to have overcome such a difficult time and to have risen above it by helping others. And I know that this discussion has been difficult, but we appreciate the fact that you were able to be here with us, number one, and number two, that you are really driving the message home and making sure that people understand the full scope and necessity of this language. One thing that I will note in regards to having language is that many times when we present language such as this or other language to companies, the question comes up, whether it be from the company or from some of our members, that do we really need the language? Can't we just have the conversation? And you all heard that Teresa did not have contract language at that time. Her supervisor did work with her. However, she had to approach that supervisor. And that is an extremely difficult thing to do. It is difficult to open up and let people know what you were going through. You worry about being questioned about the work that you're doing. You worry about being perceived in a particular way. You worry about getting questions and just being asked how you're doing when you really just want to be in your own world at times and not have to talk about such a difficult topic either. So my point in all of that is that having language available and in the contract for our members to see that we've already negotiated and locked in place really does start a plan, and it allows people to not have to be the ones to ask when they're already going through so much. So again, Teresa, thank you very much. We really do want to gather everyone that is attending tonight, your input on this topic as well. If you use the chat it's actually on the bottom of your screen, you can tell us just in the chat, just a few simple words on why you think that domestic violence leave language is important to include in our contracts and to ensure the safety and well-being of our members. We will use your responses during our discussion with the Paper Sector Policy Committee when they review the language that is being proposed before them for their additions and comments, and also with companies to add context to our proposals during future bargains. While you are entering those comments into the chat, I want to take a moment to recap how important it has been to hear from our moderators, from each of our panelists, and from Teresa this evening. I believe that each of these amazing women has helped to emphasize the importance of our two key components moving forward. Number one, introducing women to the paper sector to help raise the bar for more women and families in our communities. And number two, attaining important domestic violence leave language, which will provide protection to all of our members across the sector. Before we hear closing remarks from our moderators, Leanne Foster and Heidi Brock, two monumental women that represent the paper industry, Laura Donovan will share your responses to the initial question that you saw as you were entering the town hall. What does a job in the paper sector mean to you as a woman? Laura?
Yeah, hi, Brianne. Thank you. So I'm going to share with you the results. You'll all recall participating in the it's called a thought exchange. You submitted your responses to our question, what does a job in the paper sector mean to you as a woman? So what this program does is take your responses to this open-ended question, breaks it down, and kind of comes up with themes of responses. So we had 18 people participate. We had 15 different thoughts, and we had 85 different ratings here. And so I'll show you a graphic here. And so here you'll see the words that show up in bigger text. Those are the main themes of our responses. So financial, security, independence, family, freedom, those are all sort of the main themes that everybody agreed were the most important issues. And we've got some other themes behind us: stability, opportunity, industries, training, employment. So just kind of a neat way to show all of our responses. And then I'm going to throw it over to Heidi and Leanne to wrap up.
Great. Well, thank you. Leanne, should I go first, I think? Just say a couple of things. There is a slide we wanted to go ahead and pull up that has our social media information for the American Forest and Paper Association. So just wanted to share this with you. You can sign up for advocacy alerts. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn. You can find more about our sustainability goals at our afmpa.org website. But I think most importantly, what I would just say is, I think what you've heard tonight is that a great job can change lives and a great industry can change communities. And I am so humbled by Teresa's sharing her voice and the power of each of us using our voice to be a force for good in this world and in our communities. So thank you for letting me be a part of this, Leanne.
You're on mute, Leanne.
Thank you. After 17 months of doing this, you'd think I'd have that down by now. But thank you so much, Heidi, for being here. And it was really you who suggested, after I became vice president, that we should work together on bringing more women into the industry. And, as the person who leads Women of Steel, along with Ann Fleener-Gitlin, who I know is on tonight, my sister Ann, we have worked for a long time on, once sisters get into the facility, making sure that they, may have a voice on the job and are a part of the union and union activists. But we haven't really ever focused on bringing sisters into our workplaces. So this is an exciting kind of groundbreaking work for us. And I'm excited to be your partner in thinking through this together. And your suggestion of a town hall, I think, has just been amazing and has been a great evening tonight. I want to thank all of our panelists, Amy, Lori, Cindy, Gwen, Tara, and Jamie. I know it's not easy to hop on a Zoom call and share a lot of information with people out there, but you all did such a wonderful job. And I wish that we were all together so we could give you a moment of recognition. But especially Teresa, I just want to echo Heidi. You are so brave. And thank you for bringing this domestic violence issue forward. And putting your story into a video for others to use to introduce this language. It's so important for our union and its industries to recognize the reality of domestic violence. And we're hoping that by addressing it through contract language, it's going to help anyone who may confront it get the compassion, security, and caring they need. And for those who don't ever need it, it will reflect a progressive, welcoming, and safe workplace. So thank you so much. And I know that tonight could not have been possible without the hard work and tenacity of Brianne Quigley-Nackert, who coordinated this entire town hall and put it all together so beautifully. And thanks also to Gwen Booker and to Sally Feistel, who helped with initial thoughts and thinking through this, and along with Ann Fleener-Gitlin. I won't speak for Heidi, but I know for me, this event has been very helpful to hear your thoughts on what she and I can do as leaders in this space to support women in paper. I know that she and I see this as an initial step, and it will be a powerful piece that we can share with leaders both on the union side and in industry about how important it is to have women in the paper industry, and also how important it is to address the domestic violence issue that too many of us face in our lives. So thank you everyone again for your participation. It's been a great evening with all of you, and have a great night.